Sup flappers, days have passed and it's already time for us to revisit Eula and talk about her in hindsight. In this video, I will mention the pros and cons, how she stacks up against other options, as well as how she may or may not be worth picking up. All of this will be done impartially, as I will do my best to not involve biased opinions. Ultimately, I hope this video will either help you to go all in and get her, or finally part ways and move on without her. In essence, I'm here to help you with your high school crush. So first and foremost, let's talk about Eula's pros and cons. This is something that can only be discussed in hindsight, so here we are. Eula, no matter how I tried to push her limits, was an executioner excelling in burst damage. While this can be circumvented by building her with energy regen, resulting in more burst frequencies but less overall damage, the role of Eula does not change. So some people may be saying, well, is that not the same for everyone? Hu Tao and Ganyu both also focus around high burst damage, with Hu Tao's burst skill and Ganyu's second charge shot. While yes, you are correct, Hu Tao also has a 9-second duration elemental skill with a 7-second cooldown, which can also synergize with Hydro for insane vaporized damage, and Ganyu's burst damage is literally built into her charge attacks, so those two units have much better uptimes as compared to Eula. With further comparisons, Eula's burst skill costs 80 energy and has a 20-second cooldown, while Hu Tao only costs 60 energy with a 15-second cooldown. So realistically speaking, Eula serves a different purpose from characters such as Ganyu and Hu Tao. Like I said before, Eula is meant to be an executioner. She is currently the tactical nuke of Genshin Impact, and in fact, the first tactical nuke that is accessible to the common people, which is just my way of saying free-to-play players. Now, furthermore, it is unlikely that miHoYo will be planning for another physical damage carry in the near future, so it's safe to say that for the meantime, Eula will be able to hold onto the crown of White Damage Queen. Hell, you know what? Scratch that. All Damage Queen. So now let us move on into some of Eula's cons. Currently, the biggest drawback with Eula is of course her energy regen, and as I mentioned previously, that the only way to solve this issue is to forego a bit in the damage sector and build into energy recharge. Now, somewhere between 160 ER and 200 ER, along with a proper battery unit such as Diona, will make Eula have much more consistent and engaging kit. Of course, to plug this weakness, you are actively shredding away at Eula's strength, which is her high scaling burst damage. By swapping your attack percentage stance into energy regen, you will be hitting for less per hit in exchange for more hits. But this also raises a question. Eula's burst skill is designed to end fights, and in fact, it feels almost odd that you would want to run a build that prolongs the fight longer than it needs to be. Well, if this is a concern you have, you would be correct. This energy regen build is more suited for the overworld tasks, where you can have more uptime access to Eula's hard-hitting burst as opposed to the Spiral Abyss. In the Abyss, a harder-hitting burst skill will still serve more merits as opposed to a softer-hitting burst, but you can hit it more times. Furthermore, Eula being a Claymore character can feel clunky to some players who are used to playing with fast-hitting ones such as Kaching, Xiao, and Child. It's not a secret that Claymore users hit slower and have longer animation times, and Eula is certainly no exception. Although she does feel better in comparison to other Claymore users, it is something that you still have to get used to while playing her. Finally, let's pit Eula against some other units to get a feel for how her power level is. I would say she does not reach the Hu Tao and Ganyu levels of broken, yet does not feel as underwhelming and buff deserving as Kaching. Ultimately, she sits slightly above Xiao, I would say, and certainly feels more impactful than Klee. Now, of course, this is talking about everything being scaled to Constellation 0, as it's most relevant to you all this way. So, the main reason I even mention Klee is that I do think she will be our next rerun unit, and regardless of waifu or daughter, if we're talking about strict combat level, I do think Eula has Klee beat. But I will save this direct comparison for another video. With Eula being a DPS unit, is a part of her fate to go out of fashion sooner than others. And it's no fault of her own. In order for miHoYo to generate new hype for upcoming characters, older ones has to fall off. I mean, just think back to when the game first came out and we were raving about Diluc being the best DPS there is, and now Diluc isn't even top 5 in the game. This trend will continue, and I urge you all to keep this in mind. miHoYo will surely come out with a character that is perfect for you, and Eula is that for certain players. As much as I want to keep this analytical, it's just as important to remind everyone to not tunnel too hard into a character's combat stats alone. Now, I do want to briefly go over how I personally feel about Eula, and I enjoy her, but have decided to use her more for the Abyss rather than the Overworld, as I don't feel like building an energy regen sans and run a dedicated team just for her. Claymore users always do feel a bit slow for my personal taste, and my heart has always belonged to Ayaka. So for those who are looking for a character rating, I'd rate Eula 7.5 out of 10, and for reference, I'd rate someone like Hu Tao a 9 out of 10. Do with this information what you will, but for this portion, it's about my personal preference and experience playing with her. She's alright, nothing game breaking, yet she has a place for herself. I guess ultimately this is what being a balanced character is like. And thank you for watching. I hope this can put to rest your indecisiveness for Eula and help you to make a decision on whether or not to pull for her. We still have 2 weeks left, and the patch 1.6 preview will surely push you one way or the other regarding on whether to be pulling for Eula or not. As always, stay tuned for tomorrow's video as I will see you all again. So until then, stay safe and peace.